DK Metcalf requested a trade to a contender, preferably in a warm climate. How's Pittsburgh? A playoff team last year, and now they just got way better, trading a 2025 second-round pick to Seattle in exchange for Metcalf, who spent the first 6 seasons of his career with the Seahawks. Metcalf also agreeing to a 5-year, $150 million contract extension. Can't be officially signed, though, till later this week. The Steelers presumably have an idea on how they want to run their offense next season. Metcalf and George Pickens each rank in the top 6 with receiving yards on vertical routes since Pickens joined the league in 2022. Now they just need a quarterback. Lowering the bar. For not being a Jet anymore, I'm kidding. Devontae Adams racking up the air miles, going from one coast to the next, now signing with the LA Rams. It's a 2-year deal for the 32-year-old with $26 million in guarantees, a move that will likely offset the pending separation of Cooper Kupp. Adams finished last season with over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns between both the Raiders and the Jets.
It turns out money does make everything better, including playing for the Browns. Myles Garrett has demanded a trade to get away from Cleveland, but now he has a 4-year contract extension to stay in the land and make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting the deal averages $40 million a year and includes $123.5 million in guaranteed money and a no-trade clause.
Buffalo Bills, plural, a lot of them, and many going to Josh Allen. The MVP in Buffalo agreeing on a record-setting 6-year contract extension worth $330 million, which includes $250 million guaranteed. It is the most guaranteed money in league history, surpassing Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. Allen's current deal ran through 2028. This new one will keep him in Buffalo through 2030. And his age 34
career buzzer beater there for Kawhi Leonard. NFL now, DK Metcalf reportedly told the Seahawks he wanted to be traded to a contender and a warm weather team, so Seattle sent him to Pittsburgh. But ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting a new $30 million a year contract should help ease that transition. Steelers sending a second-round pick to Seattle and a 5-year, $150 million contract to Metcalf. ESPN's Brooke Pryor reporting these two teams also flipping 2025 picks in the 6th and 7th rounds. Free agency in the National Football League at high noon Eastern time. It's time for the Grazianos with Dan Graziano on SportsCenter. Graziatos is elevated. Seahawks making moves, Dan. Could they potentially be landing a quarterback in the near future?
Well, they'd better, Randy, because they're going to trade theirs to the Raiders, so they're going to need a new one. Look, they have a couple options on the table. The most prominent one is Sam Darnold. When the news of the Geno Smith trade broke Friday night, the hours that followed indicated that Sam Darnold was probably going to be the guy in Seattle. Now, nothing obviously can be done until noon Eastern today, but most people that I talked to over the weekend felt like Darnold was the most likely guy to end up in Seattle and that would be the spot where he ultimately went. They have checked in on some other guys, and if it didn't work out with Darnold, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that Seattle would have at least some interest in speaking to. The Giants have interest in Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers, it feels like might want to play for a little bit better team than the Giants. So I think still holding out hope that Pittsburgh or Seattle or even Minnesota would be an option for him. But we should know something more on Rodgers one way or the other today. And then Justin Fields is another guy Seattle has kind of kept tabs on. The Steelers are continuing to have conversations aimed at trying to re-sign Justin Fields before the negotiating window opens at noon Eastern today. But they also believe he could get interest elsewhere. The Jets have been kind of looming as a possible destination for him. And so the Steelers are still thinking about, do we talk to Aaron Rodgers? Do we talk to Russell Wilson just to keep their bases covered? But it sounds like their preference is to bring back Fields. They just don't know for sure if they're going to be able to do that.
A fun note on Justin Fields, the only quarterback in NFL history to average more rush yards per game than Fields is Lamar Jackson. That's a rarefied air. Dan Graziano, thank you, sir. NFL, we basically have a wedding for the New York Giants. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Now, the some things old are Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, headed potentially to new teams. The borrowed would be the fact that they'd be short-term fixes to a quarterback situation for which team? Big Blue. That's the blue. ESPN's Jordan Rodden reporting. It appears likely the Giants end up with Rodgers or Wilson as their free agent quarterback signing. Adam Schefter saying this morning the Steelers are expected to talk to Rodgers as well. We're keeping the love theme going with our guy, Dan
Dreamboat.
Orlovsky.
Well
He's here
said.
to play matchmaker or Tan Orlovsky.
I actually think that's the accurate European pronunciation of the last name as well.
Love, not
Orlovsky.
Orlovsky.
Yeah.
All right, then. The ideal landing spot for Aaron Rodgers, where?
It's going to start with the New York Giants. Aaron has said publicly that he wanted to stay in that area. That was his desire to stay with the Jets. And I think the Giants, one, Brian Daboll, their head coach, is a phenomenal offensive mind. I really believe he's a still very high-end coach in this league. Two, Malik Neighbors. They know that they have a proven young superstar at the wide receiver position. Rodgers is that guy that probably can play well more often than not. He's not going to be the week in, week out consistent player that he has been over the course of his Hall of Fame career. And the reality for the Giants is this. Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, their head coach and GM, they need to win by November, or we know how that league goes when it comes to job security. Yeah. I do think the Steelers are in play, but the Giants make the most sense.
Okay, what about Sam Darnold as you continue to play matchmaker here?
Well, ever since the DK trade, DK Metcalf going to the Steelers, if I were Sam Darnold, I would want to entertain Steelers as number one, because if the Steelers are going to keep George Pickens, you're talking about an offense now for a quarterback that is going to have DK Metcalf and George Pickens. Sam Darnold last year was absolutely sensational for the Vikings, in part because he had all those incredible weapons to throw the ball to, tight ends, wide receivers, and a play caller that was fantastic in Kevin O'Connell. He would have a relatively similar set in Pittsburgh if they keep George Pickens. So I think it starts with the Steelers, but obviously then transitions to the Seattle Seahawks because of the Geno Smith trade and the offense. Clint Kubiak, who's the Seahawks coordinator, runs a very similar system to the one Kevin O'Connell does in Minnesota.
It's also a natural transition to Justin Fields, right? If we're talking about the Steelers, so the pairing for Fields is where?
I would go to the Jets or then Seattle if Sam Darnold doesn't go there. If I was Justin Fields, I'm not running back to the Steelers. I played good football for you, winning football for you, and you put me on the bench, and the Jets need a starting quarterback. I would think the Jets early on.
All right, 4-2, these Steelers. We're talking about winning football. That's a winning record in anybody's book. Speed dating is over with Dan Orlovsky as we hit the music for Tan Dan.
Oh, why the light?
Here on SportsCenter with more NFL roster news that came through Sunday. The Rams announcing that they are signing Davante Adams to a 2-year free agent deal. The Jets released Adams on March 4th as they were set to face a $38 million cap hit with Adams still on the roster. Instead, the 6-time Pro Bowler now goes to a Rams team who needs to fill the void by the expected departure of Cooper Kupp. And Adams has been a red zone magnet his entire career, still one of the top threats in the league. 40 red zone touchdowns over the last 5 seasons, that leads the league, and 6 of his 8 touchdowns last season came in the red zone. That should help a Rams team that scored a touchdown on just over half of its red zone trips last season. That ranked 25th in the league.
As we all know, the quarterback news that all Giants fans have been waiting to hear obviously dropped last night with the announcement that Tommy DeVito will be back for another season. But what about Aaron Rodgers? What about a new QB1 via the draft? What is that New York state of mind? The truth is out there. Jeremy Fowler always has it. We welcome him now to the show. Let's just start there with the biggest name. What is going on with the Giants and Aaron Rodgers?
Well, Nicole, I'm told the Giants are going into tomorrow's tampering period with a plan of attack and that they're going to have several quarterbacks on the menu and can adjust depending on how those dominoes fall. I do suspect Aaron Rodgers is one. I do suspect Sam Darnold and Justin Fields are 2 other options. A lot will depend on what Darnold chooses to do. Many people I've talked to around the league expect him to go to Seattle, sign with the Seahawks, but if that doesn't happen, there could be a lot of chaos and the Giants will be in the middle of it. But certainly there is some momentum for Rodgers. It seems not a slam dunk, but he has an option there. He has a home in New Jersey, already played for the Jets. He could just go across the way, play in New York. But depending on how these dominoes fall, he could have some other options. You know, what if Minnesota doesn't sign Daniel Jones back and then they want to bring in a veteran? Is Rodgers an option there? So a lot can happen in the next 24 hours.
As a Green Bay fan and family, the whole thought of him going to the Vikings is just Favre 2.0 all over again. Look, okay, so Davante Adams, he went from Rodgers in New York to Matthew Stafford in L.A. How did that deal go down?
Well, Davante Adams, I'm told, wanted to end up in L.A. He wanted to be either a Ram or a Charger or maybe a 49er, but somewhere definitely on the West